city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound is the voice within, to give ear to the spirit and to flee from sin, to live for Jesus in the praise of him, by not selling out for the praise of men, to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to keep pushing up the weight, carrying the cross, straight bench pressing sin, defend the word that lacks, and your best mention him, or then you're gon' die. Cause the underground sound in a city or a town, the business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, the frown.
Oh, guys, I've had the weirdest day over here. So my buddy Scott Davenport, known him for like 10 years. He goes out and writes a book. Now, I don't even know if Scott Davenport can read a book, but he decides he's going to go out and write a book. Write a book, allegedly. What's that mean? He got a few dollars saved up and he sent it to an editor? Okay, so he writes this book and he sends it to me and he asks me to, hey, man, can you help me get the word out? It's like, Scott, that's not really what I do. I don't really get the word out. Like, I have a different audience with my relationship. I mean, I would tell him, this is one of the worst books I've ever read. It's edited right. Most of the periods are where they're supposed to be. There's a lot of punctuation errors. I mean, this book is really bad. It's like remarkably bad. My mother used to play once a month. She would go and play a game called Bunko. And she would always come home, and I'd always make a deal with her and say, Mom, you got to wake me up when you get home. Just let me know that you're home. And she always would. And she used to win something called the Booby Prize. And I was too young to know what the Booby Prize was. All I know is my mom came home with a gift, and it was kind of cool. Well, when I got older, I found out that the Booby Prize goes to whoever plays Bunko and gets last place. If you're the absolute worst player, they give you a prize as a gift. My buddy Scott Davenport wrote the Booby Prize.
All right, we are live and alive on the Underground Sound, and we are with the whore for results himself, Josh Bryant. I wanted to share a story with you guys, just because I think it's fitting to the theme today. But it'll make sense by the end of it. You know, at first you guys will be like, "What is he talking about?" But when I first moved to Medford, when I first moved here. I just needed a job or whatever. So I got on Craigslist, and the airport was hiring. They had Delta Airlines and United Airlines had like underbid their contract, for the grounds or whatever. And they created another company that underbid their other company to get the contract at the airport. And I got hired on as a ramp agent. So I was one of those dudes that like loads bags and stuff like that. And the way that it worked was like, you got minimum wage and it freaking was like, you're totally understaffed, and we had like, you'd have like 3 guys out there doing like 10 people's jobs, and it hella sucked. I mean, what I'm getting at is it hella sucked. I would have to work at like 3 in the morning. I'd be out there at 3 in the morning, and I'd be on one of those little carts, and freaking driving out to the plane. I had to fill it up with water, and my hands, like, it was so cold, like my hands stopped working. My hand, I'm sure you've experienced that, Pete, being in Wisconsin and stuff. Like when it's freezing, like your freaking hands, you can't grab anymore, and it starts like, it starts like to pinch you, like that biting feeling all over. And so it was like extremely painful, and totally sucked. And I had to load like tons of bags on these freaking planes, and I'd have to grab the bags like this because I couldn't grab the handles. I would try to grab the handles, my hands wouldn't work. So I'd freaking grab the bags like this and put them on the conveyor belt and try to get this done as fast as possible. And they had a thing with their flights that you had to get everything done in 18 minutes. That was like their standard. Like you have to have all the passengers on the plane. You got to take all their carry-on bags, and you got to load the bags in 18 minutes. And it was the same thing. Like if a plane landed, you had to flip it in 18 minutes. But they wouldn't give you enough help. We didn't have enough help. So we're like totally short-staffed. And if you had somebody that like didn't work hard, it would mess you up, man. Because I mean, you're throwing so many bags, like my back would feel it. I would be like hurt, and I'd be like, damn, I freaking threw my back out because like some dude's hella lazy or whatever. He's not pulling his weight, and so it's just like crushing you because now you're going from throwing a couple hundred bags a day to like thousands of bags or whatever. A couple people don't work hard, and so I was constantly like really pissed off because you'd do that, and then you'd go every single flight. They'd call you into operations, and then they would tell you all the mistakes you made. So you'd go out there, you'd get hammered, and then they'd bring you in the office, and like seriously, those de-icer machines where they have those machines where they de-ice the planes.
Yeah.
The boss would drive up to the plane and be in a heated truck and just watching you. Like watching you straight up, just with their hand on a warmer, all comfy, and just watching you, and then just writing down all the things you're doing wrong so that they could call you into the operations after the flight and just tell you, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. So it's like you're getting kicked while you're down. And basically the standard operating procedure there was everybody would go to the break room after that, and everyone would complain. Everybody. You'd go in there, you'd just be like, this freaking job sucks, and freaking they don't staff us enough, and we don't get paid enough, and I'm gonna quit. And I was there for a year, and at least I had to have seen at least 100 people quit in a year, easily 100 people. And so everybody, every single person was like that, everyone. And then one day this guy started. This guy's name was Andrew, and I'm working with this dude, and I would work on the flights with him, and he would be sprinting as fast as he could, running from plane to plane and throwing bags. I mean like insane, like freaking just boom, 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 chucking bags and running, full sprint, plane to plane to plane. And when I would work with this guy, like my back felt better, like I'd be like, damn, dude, like my back got a break today. And he would be soaked in sweat, and he'd have this big old smile on his face. And then we'd go to the break room, and where everybody'd go to complain, we would go in the break room, and this guy would be like, he would be like mopping the floor. He'd get out the mop bucket, and he would be mopping the floor, and then he'd be wiping the walls down and, organizing stuff and taking out the trash. And he would just be working, and he would be like super happy, just like big old smile on his face and everything. And I was like watching the guy, and I'm like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Like I was like, this guy's got like mental problems or something, I don't know what this dude's deal is, man. He's like stoked for like the shittiest situation ever. And he did it every single day. And so one day I asked him, I said, hey man, like, what is wrong with you, bro? I was like, what is your problem, dude? Like, why are you happy when there's like no reason to be happy? You know, like everybody sucks, everybody hates it here, and you're freaking like working hell hard and stuff, and doing all this stuff uh, for no reason. And he looked at me while he's mopping the floor, and he had this big smile, and he goes, I do everything unto the Lord, bro. That's what he said. He goes, I do everything unto the Lord. And then he told me this story about how Paul in the Bible, he goes, Paul was in prison. He was in prison with I think Paul and Silas were in prison together, and they were chained up, and they were locked up. And it says like at midnight or something, Paul started singing hymns. Like he started singing these like worship songs and like praising God and stuff, and saying like God's great and stuff like that. And just having like a gratitude attitude. And it said that there was when he started singing the songs, there was an earthquake, and the prison doors opened up, and they were free, and when they were going to leave, the prison guards were going to kill themselves, because their job was to keep the prisoners in the prison. And if they let them escape, they would get beaten and killed or whatever. So these dudes were like going to kill themselves. And Paul, he was like, I'm not going to escape. I'm going to stay. And then the prisoners, they were like, they asked that question. They're like, why are you like this? And they said, because of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And the prison guards got saved. And so my buddy, he said to me, he goes, praise God in your prison. That's what he said. He said, praise God in your prison, and you'll be set free from the prison, and people around you will get saved. And I started doing that. Like at work, I would come to work, and I just like hated my life. It was like a prison kind of, because I was like trapped in this job that hella sucked. I had to do it. And I would come to work, and I'd just be like, God, you're amazing, and you're great, and you bless my life. And like I would say all these things, I'd be like, you made the whole universe, and you've blessed my life and given me all these things. And it really did make me like, it was like I was released from a prison I was in, and then it started to affect people around me. And I just felt like that was, I read your book about gratitude. Both I read Jailhouse Strong, and I read what is it called again? The Gratitude. Grounded in Gratitude. I read that, and I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, I had a real life experience like that, and I applied it, and it totally is 100% true. From real life experience, that was a really life changing experience for me at working at that job and having that, like. Because to me, I was like, it was a real life situation. It wasn't like, oh, I just went to church and you hear the message, or like normal Christianity or whatever. It was like at the job, at my prison or whatever. It was like in my situation that was hard. I actually saw a real life application to my faith, and it was all about my attitude, and it was, man, I can't even explain how life changing that was, but. I love that book. I love reading that book. I love both of them. Jailhouse Strong is freaking really good. I really like that one. But I just wanted to share that and kick off the podcast with that story, because I just thought it was fitting, with the jailhouse freaking strong, you guys.
Yo, dude, I like it.
So Josh, how long have you been coaching people? How many years now?
Since like in high school, so like I guess like junior high, because I was running a gym, or not. I mean, a junior in high school, not junior high. A junior in high school. I got a job at a hardcore gym, and I would be in there nighttime from like 5 to 10. So it wasn't football season or something, and then I would work on weekends. So it was a pretty easy job. So I would end up coaching people there at the gym when I was that young, and started making people programs. I for, I guess, less of a church type of story, I started, making programs for the bouncers, like the local strip clubs and stuff. I thought I was so cool, like 16 years old, these huge ex-con, bouncers from the strip club, I'm sitting there writing them programs they're doing. I'm like, this is awesome. And kind of like, took off from there. So then I went in when I was like 19 or something, to a ISSA seminar that Fred Hatfield taught. or no, not it was, and then it was Tom Platz was there. So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. So I guess for a long time, because yeah, like 22 years or something.
Wow, 22 years. Like, you have such an extensive background with high-profile clients, and even like a lot of people don't remember, don't know this, but I worked with you for a time being, and I
Yeah.
gotta apologize because back then I was young and I didn't stick to the program as much as I should have, and it wasn't what it could have been, but at the same time, Josh got me ready for the backyard meet of the century at Mark Bell's gym, and that's where
Yeah.
I squatted that infamous 300 kilo high bar squat. So I really appreciate that, and when you working with me back then in my younger years.
Yeah.
But who was the first client of yours who really kind of like, put you on the map, like your first
Okay.
high profile client?
Sure. I would say there'd be a few ways to look at this. So I interned at UCLA and worked with a lot of guys there, on the football team when they were pretty good, 2004. Then of like powerlifting people would be 2005. I had a guy named Ben Graves that benched.
Okay.
You know him as Tennessee. You're in Tennessee now, right?
I'm not familiar with that. That's a little
He's in
before my
Franklin,
time.
Kentucky. I guess it's like right. Do you know the border right? Oh, 65.
Yeah.
You're driving through like Nashville through White House, and you get into Kentucky right there. It's Franklin, Kentucky. It's like the first town over. He's right there, and
Okay.
he wasn't. I don't think social media was as big back, obviously, in 2005. And then the other thing was there also wasn't, besides social media not being big, Powerlifting USA, what their main sponsor was Inzer and other equipment companies. So they're not going to put as much. It's not like conspiracy or anything. It's just they're not going to put the raw lifting in there as much at the time because the people who are keeping the magazine afloat were the equipment companies. So kind of like he's not real well known, but you guys should take a look at him. His name's Ben Graves. He benched 615 raw in 2007, and he hit. And then he also did bodybuilding. He wasn't like a great bodybuilder, but for a powerlifter doing bodybuilding, he looked really good. And then he did come down here and won the Texas Strongest Man. So it was kind of like the all-around kind of iron athlete. Then from there, got to Metroflex, and I started working with more people. And I think like people like Johnny Jackson started noticing, if you get like these high school kids to do really good stuff, thinking, hey, this high school kid came in here and wasn't doing a whole lot. Now all of a sudden, what can they do with me type of thing. So kind of like you were talking about right there, Scott, you made an interesting point about the gratitude. I think there's also more to that story is the law of stewardship. If you can handle, if people notice, if you can, it's just like finances. If you are broke and you earn $60,000 a year, you're gonna be broke when you earn 600,000. You'll be broke if you earn 6 million. You can't handle what you have. So people see you do well with people, and that's actually a biblical principle of stewardship. Is like, can you handle what you have? So I think they saw that I was doing well with these people, so kind of just momentum takes over.
That makes so much sense too, because like I know like Joe DeFranco, he's a high profile coach in the sports industry,
Sure.
and like he worked with a lot of local high school kids, and then he got Brian Cushing on board, and it just took off from there.
Sure.
And I actually remember one of the first guys. I don't know if he was one of the first guys you worked with, but Orlando Green.
Yeah.
I was watching that stuff, and I was like blown away at the time because I loved the deadlift, and here was Orlando Green pulling 900 pounds basically, and that just the how strong he was on all those accessory lifts and the training you guys put up was so unorthodox. That just fascinated me. And a lot of people don't even know who Orlando Green is now because he was kind of before the social media spectrum as well.
Yeah.
That was one of the guys who was like just top of the line.
Well, and that was good. That was a good experience too there with him because that went on to show me. So like what I've been able to do better than, success is you realize not everybody's the same. Like we were talking about Scott's training the other day. Like he said you had him pulling a lot of submaximal deadlifts and stuff because he doesn't do well going heavy all the time, that kind of thing. Same with Orlando Green. Like you can, like a lot of people that are good deadlifters, you put them on this, linear periodized program, you go up into the meet and it works like magic, as long as you do a proper off season. Orlando Green's not that person. His style is so ballistic. It's so stressful in the central nervous system. so stressful in the back. If you try to make him do that every week, I mean, he ain't gonna be pulling anything. So with him, like you just said, the crazy accessory. So like, that was, it was sort of like a learning experience for me. It's like, okay, this is not going to work how I would like to do it. So we're going to have to do like strongman events, weird accessories, things like that. Boom, he's pulling about 900 pounds by going unorthodox.
Wow.
Yeah, Josh was actually the first person who I ever saw start doing seal rows. Like I'd never seen that before. You had your guys doing them. And then the other one that honestly a lot of people like credit me with this, but I got it from you training with Orlando Green was the 45-degree back extensions. Like
Yeah,
I
that's
started doing those. They took my deadlift to the next level, and people were always like, "All right, that came from Josh Bryant." To be honest,
The deadlift came from Josh Bryant.
that was a Josh Bryant. He was the first person I ever saw do that, where you put a barbell on the ground and do a back raise, and you could load those suckers up to 400 pounds, and your deadlift, your lockout would just explode. And so I saw you do that, and then the seal rows. You were the first person to kind of be doing those with your guys.
I don't remember where I learned the seal rows from. I know I didn't make that one up. I'm not saying I made up the 45-degree deadlift one. I just know at Metroflex they had that piece there, and I always see people doing it with plates. And I'm like, okay, obviously, say someone as strong as you, Pete, like we can sit there till the cows come home and do it with a 45. It's gonna be more like a prehab deal or something at that point. Where it's like, so I'm like started experimenting with it, and we started, like you said, loading it up where, yeah, you all of a sudden, people are doing 400 pounds on it that are really strong, and it had some nice transference for sure.
Now, did you ever like cross paths with like Ronnie Coleman or work with him or anything? Like, because you were at Metroflex and Ronnie's like freaking the man.
Yeah. So I actually if you guys get a chance, check it out. I got a video interview with him. We actually I met up with him. We did an IHOP of all places. He wanted to go to IHOP to do it. But, and I walked in, they're like, "Oh, you're here to see Ronnie?" I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Oh, you just look like you know him." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." So and like, he had like a special section in the back, and like, people would like come up and like, it was like some kind of like Godfather, like running the show out of IHOP. But,
That's hilarious.
yeah, no. So the last time, when I got to Metroflex, that was the year that he lost the Olympia to Jay Cutler. So he won it 98 through 2005, and then 2006 he got second place, and that's when that's when I saw him. And so I think he was past. I mean, not past. I mean, he wasn't like hitting the PRs he did, but he wasn't really behind that either. So pretty interesting story here. So he used to hire this guy. There was actually like the guy was just like he cut women's hair. He was just a dude but he's a good bodybuilder too. And Ronnie paid him $40 an hour only to spot him and hand him dumbbells. That was his only job. Like, the guy wasn't like training him. The guy wasn't doing nothing. But like, if he's gonna do bench dumbbell with 200 pounds on the bench, this dude sit there, pick him up, and just sit there and spot him.
Unreal.
I mean, it's like, think about it. Like,
It's worth it.
yeah, if you're gonna BSN contract for a couple million, you'd be a fool not to do something like that. Like, why would you waste all your energy, running around Metroflex where everything's disorganized and picking up like dumbbells when you could pay this dude $40 an hour?
So did Ronnie learn how to train from Brian Dobson? Is he who set him up with his programming and stuff?
So basically, Ronnie's history is Ronnie. People don't know this. He actually did powerlifting meets before he did bodybuilding in Louisiana high school. Okay, so fast forward, he comes to Arlington to get the job with Arlington PD, and they're in a bodybuilding contest, and someone told him to be good at bodybuilding or something like that. And then so Brian said he came to Metroflex, and Brian told Ronnie, like, looked at him, and he's like, he could see that what he had potential. He's like, I'll show you how to train. I'll do your diets, all this stuff if you'll train with me every day. So they trained together for years. And so basically, it would be like Ronnie, learned what he learned from Brian. Then, as time went on, kind of put his own unique touches on it. But yeah, I definitely think Brian would be the one that taught him the most about training 100%.
That's crazy. Have you worked with Branch Warren too?
Yes, Branch, and Johnny.
So how did their training differ from like powerlifting training? Because I know they did a little powerlifting training, specifically Johnny going into meets. But
Yeah,
like, did you incorporate? Was there crossover between the two?
yeah. So,
Um,
you guys get a chance to go on YouTube. So I have the video, some of the videos of Branch on there on YouTube of me training him, and just type in like Branch Warren, Josh Bryant or something. But they're from like 2012 or something, and they're voiced over. So a lot of it was more like power bodybuilding because that's what they specifically said when Branch talked to me. Said that's what he wanted. So it wasn't like, so it was kind of an interesting concept. Like for instance, like I was once we decided we were going to start working together, it wasn't about for a month. So I used to give a Metroflex like 12, 13 hours a day. So I would just watch them a lot. If I wasn't training somebody, I would sit there. They must have, like, I'd be like timing them and stuff. Like, all right, so how long do they rest between sets? How long does how long does a set take? They probably thought I was crazy, but I'd be sitting there like a stopwatch. And I figured out, like, for instance, that since the way they train, they hardly ever, for upper body stuff, they probably hardly ever go beyond like 9 or 10 seconds for a set. Where, generally with bodybuilding for hypertrophy, you need more than about 20 seconds a lot of times for a lot of your sets. And so like things like that. So I started doing more time under tension with them, where like that new book I just had come up right now, Time Under Tension Training. That's kind of what it's based off of. That kind of training is where we would do certain exercises like for a certain amount of time. Like, hey, you know what? You're going to do the dumbbell bench press for like 30 seconds or something like that. And we're going to maximize reps. Once you hit failure, you're going to continue on with a partial range of motion. You hit failure with a partial range of motion, you're going to squeeze as hard as you can isometrically. So then, like, how it would differ from some more normal bodybuilding besides that is we used a lot of bands and chains because they were not they never locked anything out or ever like anything. And so we could get like for instance on the incline or something, I had to squeeze it at the top and get a better contraction with that band versus just always doing that variable range of or that continual tension range of motion, which is better probably. I just want to provide them a new stimulus. So like that kind of, we did a lot of, and then like, they did stuff like chain flies. Like I think a lot of bodybuilders miss out because they're very up to date bodybuilders with supplementation, nutrition, but they're really far behind on training techniques a lot of times. So what we would do is like chain flies for chest, for instance. So like you think about that when you get that chain on there, the chain as you go down in a fly where you're weakest, most vulnerable is unloaded on the floor. Then you lift, then you squeeze back together, link by link, it comes off. So you start to overload the entire range of motion. So things like that were different for sure.
Yeah, I just saw an interview with like Dave Tate and John Meadows, and they were talking about bands and chains. And Dave said he incorporates a lot more of those now because the stress on the joint is less at the bottom, or is more at the bottom when the bands and chains are at their weakest point, and then at the top, where your joints are most powerful, that's when they're kicking in the most. So he likes using those a lot. But
for sure, and you think about that. So with a fly, unless you're on cables, cables are good because at the top, the movement you're squeezing and you got nice tension on your muscles. But like dumbbells, if you're doing a lying dumbbell fly, like from here to here, it's all momentum. It's not muscle doing that. So with the bands or chains, yeah, you can really squeeze that in and touch those suckers, and it's the hardest point. So even though your strongest part of the strength curve there, you're having to overcome the most resistance. So it works real well.
Now, I got really like just into that, thinking about that concept when I would read Arthur Jones' writings, like the Nautilus Bulletins. Have you read the Nautilus Bulletins? What do you think about Arthur Jones? Because a lot of people seem to like not think much of him, but I thought that guy was brilliant when I read his.
I think he's kind of a nut, but like, yeah, he's some good ideas. Like, I mean, I guess we, want to hear a funny story about Arthur Jones?
Yeah.
Fred Hatfield knows him well.
Oh yeah.
I guess we can. Both of them are, no longer with us, so it's not like we're getting him in trouble or something but he apparently Arthur Jones went to the NSCA convention and he was afraid people were going to be challenging like some of his ideas, and he clearly was brandishing a gun. He didn't like wave it at the crowd, but he like let it be known like like it was like tucked into his pants where you could see it.
Wow.
And he hired bodyguards, like, you know, like I don't know who it was, but like Lyle Alzado type of guys, like, you know, NFL, like he had this whole entourage and a gun being brandished at the convention.
That's
And basically went up there and I don't remember who he's talking about. He said so and so's ideas were all bullshit and like basically like, you know, challenging anybody to like want to debate with him. But it's like I don't know if people were going to debate with this entourage and the gun. Then Fred said another time. He said he was you know that he had those zoos. That's how he made all his money before. Do you know about that?
Yeah, he had the show Wild Cargo.
Exactly. So
capture
he was over in Africa getting some elephants, and he took the seats out of a DC-10 plane, and to put all the elephants on. But I guess he got greedy and wanted to put too many of them on there. Like I guess he had like problems with the locals. They kind of figured out, you know, he didn't really have their best interest. He just wanted to like, you know, get as many elephants as he could as cheap as possible. And so he's, you know, he got out of there quick. And Fred said that he was like, I mean, he was like literally 100 foot over like some of the mountains. Like he was that close to crashing because he put too many elephants on the DC-10. And he said that Fred said that he used to like want him to do tests on him and stuff. Said he wanted to test his quad strength, but he had a torn quad and stuff. So I don't know. But I do think he is very smart. He's just like a nut, though. But he's very intelligent. Yeah.
No, he wrote his. I read like all his stuff, and his autobiography was absolutely insane. Like I was
called like God Laughs or something.
Yeah, and he was writing. I mean, he writes some stuff where you're like, dude, bro, you're like, wait. He was like you said, he's nuts. But then when he talks about like that's where I really understood that whole concept of like because you have what is it? You know, concentric, eccentric, static, right? You have all those different levels of strength, and he's explaining the whole strength curve of you could lift so much and you could hold 20% more and you could lower 20% more.
Sure.
And then also just the curve of like, if you're doing a curl, you know, the reason he designed the Nautilus machine was because the weight ratio would alter and it would go on the Nautilus cam rather than like gravity goes straight up and down. And he was explaining that stuff. And I was like, this is like genius stuff that people don't really talk about, or I don't think a lot of people understand it. You know, it made a lot of sense, but you know, the best.
Mike Menser stuff too.
Yeah. Mike Menser. That's kind of, I found out about Mike Menser first, and then that's kind of what led me to Arthur Jones. But you know, Mike obviously had a great
interesting observation of Mike of that kind of training with Mike Menser and them is, you know, they actually don't do what they say with that one set to failure. So it's actually similar to like what Branch Warren typically does. Watch them, they build up in sets.
Yeah.
And that last set is like this gun to your head death set, drop set. You keep going, you know, like your life depends on it. So when they say they do one set, they're saying the previous 4 sets that led up to that had no training effect. Well, obviously, if you had to guess, I'm sure the crazy set had the most stimulus for hypertrophy. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, but it's not true that those previous ones didn't have any buildup. So I think it became a little bit of a marketing thing. Is basically like, let's do 3 to 5 sets. One set's like a gun to your head death set, where the rest are like, you know, shy of failure. Yeah.
Yeah, he developed that. Remember, Pete, I sent you that workout that Casey Viator did, and I was asking you if you thought you could do it. Arthur Jones is the guy that trained him. He was the one that created that whole entire high intensity where he did the leg press to leg squats. That workout's crazy.
Supersets and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's in favor of that kind of training. I think that's what it doesn't get. I personally, I don't think for most people that's gonna be the best way, but I do think it's a bum rap because it takes a really special person to do those workouts with that intensity, like that Casey's workout right there.
Yeah,
you know,
that's crazy.
It's crazy. That should be like the hardest thing you've ever done, and there's no way you're gonna be able to train hard the next day. I mean, it's just you can't. Even different body parts, there's no way. And I think that's what people are missing out, because most people aren't capable of that type of intensity, so they have to do more sets because They can't get to that level on any set.
Do you think intensity is like the separating factor in who becomes the best in terms of training, strongest?
I think a lot of it, yeah. I think it's that. So that intensity being an overcompassing mindset for sure. Because just for instance, like the first time I saw you lift before we'd ever worked together or anything, you had the intensity. You understood like it doesn't matter if you knew the science, it didn't matter what your background was. You got intuitively or something to put max force into those lifts. You get it. And I think that's what Fred Hatfield and I used to talk about a lot was he always said he thought the biggest difference between like average lifters and elite lifters was compensatory acceleration training. Of like, do you get that concept?
The speed.
Like, do you have that intent to move that bar as violently as possible without sacrificing technique? And that's, so to me, that would go in with the intensity thing of like, yeah, I think there's definitely the intensity factor. And then I think the other one is, the lifestyle one. That's, there's a lot of good lifters that do things that aren't conducive to being great lifters, but that's not like, if you go out drinking 3 nights a week, you're not good because it's in spite of that. But I would definitely say somebody that goes out drinking a couple times a week, probably still better off than somebody that like mentally doesn't get it. Obviously like the Ed Cohn's, the best of the best, going to have all those things taken care of.
I almost feel like you have to have some screws loose to an extent to like be really good at this. Because honestly, the more my life has calmed down, the harder it is to turn on that intensity. And like when I was pissed off and everything and things weren't perfect, it was a lot easier. So it's tougher to call on the aggression, but the aggression is really what, gives you the maximal power output. And just like you were talking about, that's almost necessary to produce the force needed to move these heavy weights. So
that's a good point. It's like, yeah, you do have to be a little unstable, and it gets painful, because like just like I don't go that heavy on stuff as much anymore. I'll do like way more work and shorter rest breaks and stuff. But once in a while, I'm gonna go real heavy today. I'm always surprised at how strong I am, but I'm always surprised at how much it takes out of me. So all of a sudden, instead of doing a set every 45 seconds or something, doing resting 7 minutes, 10 minutes between sets, and it's amazing how much strength I can garner. But like it's like the next day where you pay for it more. It's like not like physically sore. It's like mentally kind of draining and stuff. It's like, yeah, when I did my heaviest deadlift, that lift, seriously, like I felt like I was in a fog for about 15 days. Like I didn't feel like I could function. Remember after that lift, a friend of mine came out here and he was staying with us and like, yeah, let's get a few beers at Chili's afterwards and kind of chill out. Then like didn't calm me down as much, still kind of, so we stopped at the store and got like a 6-pack of beer. So I didn't drink that much, but like enough that I woke up the next day. I thought I was like, man, for like 8 or 9 Coors Lights, it wasn't even like it was some strong beer. I don't drink that often, but I don't think I'd be this hungover from it. Like this is bizarre. And the next day, the same thing. Well, so it wasn't a hangover. It was just like that lift, man. I literally felt like I couldn't function for like about 15 days.
Wow.
The CNS fatigue from a heavy deadlift is like unlike anything else. It just destroys you.
Well, there were times I saw Julius's bench press the other day.
Yeah.
The 725 for 2, which I think if the untrained naked eye, like you guys will get this, is like, what I was saying is like, man, he wasn't really psyched up for that. That's big because like he is somebody that takes that psych to a next level. If he's just kind of nonchalantly walking up and doing that, that's scary stuff at that point.
It looked easy for him.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring this up, and it's a sore subject for me a little bit, but still, anyways, I actually did the last podcast ever with Fred Hatfield. Like 3 days before he passed away, I did a podcast with him. And
Cool.
Yeah, and it's a sore subject because YouTube, I was trying to promote stuff and I was just sharing, like I would like copy and paste my videos to like other channels and stuff in the comments, and YouTube freaking deleted my channel. and they deleted that podcast. It was like a YouTube live type thing, and so that the podcast, and they wouldn't give it back to me. I was like, can you guys give me that video, because the guy freaking passed away, and I got this freaking interview with them that right before he passed away, you know, and they were like, sorry, you freaking broke our guidelines or whatever. So screw you, Eugene. But but anyways,
that sucks. Yeah, dude. That's because we were going to. So we had been doing a bunch of seminars together, and then we did one in Houston, and we took a break for a while because we were doing a bunch of stuff over that. Like, he passed away on Mother's Day of 2017. So we were going to so that was a Sunday, or no, I guess he passed away the day before, because I got the call like early in the morning Sunday. So it was Saturday. I guess it was Saturday night or Sunday morning, somewhere in there. And anyway, so he was like, we were going to go to Niagara Falls that Friday, and then go to can't believe I'm blanking on this. Oh yeah, Denmark on the Thursday.
wow.
I mean, we had so much. Then he was coming out here. We were gonna do a YouTube thing for Destination Dallas and Gasp, and we had a lot of stuff planned, man. It was weird. I know he's older, but like, honestly, like, it would have been as strange getting that call as if it was about one of you guys. It was like just so unexpected.
Yeah, he seemed really healthy when I talked to him. And the thing that I wanted to ask you, though, is that, like, if he ever talked to you about this, because I vividly remember the thing he talked about the most in that podcast was, he said that in the Bible there was a verse where Jesus like went into the closet or something like that. He said, like, go into your prayer closet and pray, and don't do it in front of people. That kind of message. And what Fred told me is that he felt like that was the secret to lifting. He said you have to go in your mind in this closet in your head and get totally focused into the zone, and that's where, you know, all the magic happens. And that's what he really, really talked about. He was like, that's what his message was in that podcast. Like, if I took anything away from that podcast, that's what it was. He said, go into your closet in your mind, and just get into the zone, and, you know, and that's where it happens. And I want to say he talked about gratitude even too, like that.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
He would always talk about, did he use the term monkey mind, calming down the monkey mind?
I don't remember that. I don't. Maybe he did, but I can't remember.
But that's a term that people use as, like, I think nowadays, especially, of getting in the zone or something. It's like, you know, it's basically being fully immersed and engaged in the activity of what you're doing. Time either speeds up or slows down depending on what you need. But, you know, it's sort of weird. It's like, I'll give you a weird example of, like, this is kind of strange, but have you guys ever, like, fallen over and you can kind of like see yourself falling and stuff in slow motion as it's happening?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's I wish I could, he was still alive to tell him, but that's sort of, I think, when you're in the zone, is at that point, that's how it feels, but you're in complete control at that point. It's like there's not really problems. There's only like solutions at that point. Like, you find a way, it just, things automatically happen. They speed up, they slow down, they go to whatever you need. And I think nowadays that's hard for people because we have, there's a lot of different stimuli coming all the time. Like, I mean, people, like, personally, like, if I'm working on people's programs or something, I don't keep my phone right by me. Like, so just because, if it can be a distraction if I'm on a computer type of thing. So I feel like people are always doing so many different things, they kind of lose track of stuff. And like at the gym, you'll see people like, there was a guy, I actually quit. I can't go to 24-hour fitness. I just can't do it anymore. It just was not my scene. And I remember to be a guy there, I saw last time, was like literally talking on the phone while he's like doing dumbbell flies. But I'm saying, like,
it's so stupid.
Trying to like cut a business deal, Mr. High Roller hanging out 24-hour fitness. There's no way that if that business deal or whatever he's doing is going to be to the best of his ability. He might miss a very important detail, and there's no way the fly was the best of his ability. So like,
yeah,
he'd be better off saying, hey, you know what? He was there for. I mean, I was there for an hour, and he was there. I don't know how long he was there for. This guy was there. I saw him right when I walked in, and saw him when I left. So I was there for an hour, so it was longer than that. He'd be better off saying, you know what? I only have time to work out for 25 minutes, but I'm going to do this 25 minutes like fully immersed in it and focused.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like that, especially for me on like a squat.
Mm-hmm.
I literally have to put my earbuds in to cut out all the noise around me, get a good song on, and just like almost start talking crap to the bar. Like, you're either going to break me or I'm going to, get this set. It's either going to kill me or that's it. And that's what I have to do to get myself amped up. Like, let's do this, Not really going to a dark place, but it's that focus and aggression where it's like, let's get after it no matter what.
I've never gone to, I know some people like go to these dark places where you like, picture someone hurting your kid and then you're like trying to get them off. That's not me. I think Mike Tyson, what he say, a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. That's how I always felt. Like, I want to go to these happy places where it's like bliss. It's like, it's like, the zone is like, that's what Fred used to say, like the zone's like heaven. Is basically your heaven on earth. That's what the zone is. Like, so that's his idea of what heaven would be is you're constantly in the zone. You're not in and out of the zone. You're just in the zone.
Yeah.
That's
that's crazy that you said that, because that came up this came up when we talked to Julius, and I never knew this. I heard it in a message though, and it was regarding the Holy Spirit, the presence of the Holy Spirit. And I heard a message where this guy said, you would think that the Holy Spirit comes upon you and then you have all these great words, right? Like you start preaching all this great stuff. But this guy that I listened to, he said, when you preach, so preaching was the first thing you do. When you preach, the Holy Spirit comes upon you. That's what actually draws the Holy Spirit to you, So it's kind of a reverse of what you would think it would be, And I had that experience. What you're talking about,
you got to get active first to get.
Yes, and that's what the reason I love, because I do MMA. The reason I love fighting so much is when I would fight, that's when that I would experience that zone. It's not from like, I don't get in the zone to go fight, but fighting puts me in the zone.
For sure.
I love it. It's like the best feeling in the world. That's why I love it. That's the reason I love it. Because it just like, you just get freaking so like adrenaline comes through your body and you're just so present minded. You don't have any other thoughts. You're just like experiencing this thing, and it's like, but it's not like you get in the zone to go do that. Just going and doing that puts you in the zone.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you have a better single-minded focus like that, you can get in that zone easier. Like, so that's what you're saying right there. So now you can put yourself in that zone easier. So as you get better at it, you might get in the zone while someone's just holding pads for you or something, not have to just, actually be fighting somebody. It could be like over time, you just kind of can get in the zone. The more often you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and I think almost everybody's been there, at least once. And yeah, it's pretty interesting though. I definitely could see like where Fred was going, that he always related the zone back to the Bible somehow. Like, even though like, I don't know, I don't even fully know everything he was meaning by it. It was pretty interesting. Like he was kind of saying what you're saying, it's like sort of like, isn't the, something in there like people are without excuse. Maybe that's what it means, is like, if, you've been in the zone, you realize there's something outside of yourself out there.
Well, I think too, like,
I'm not a biblical scholar, but that would make sense, Yeah.
I think like a disciplined lifestyle, honestly, this is going to sound funny to some people, but I think a disciplined lifestyle brings you closer to God, because discipline just brings out the best in your life. That's how it is for me. And I look at it now the same way you guys were talking about, like training. To me, I look forward to it so much. Every training session, I'm like, this is fun. I get into the zone because I'm excited and happy to do it. Whereas in the past, there might have been these dark thoughts, and I might have been trying to impress people on the internet and things like that. It's when you change that mindset completely, it gets so much better. And it's like, I feel like the more discipline I've brought into my life, the closer I've gotten to God. and the better everything is gone. Everything around me, whether it's training, whether it's relationships, all those things. So in a lot of ways, I think God ties directly into discipline.
Yeah.
That's
100%. Well,
I
part
mean,
of
there's definitely Bible verses that would suggest such too. So I mean, I think your own experience would dictate that as well. I mean, that makes I mean, 'cause just think about it, if you're not being disciplined, you're usually
temptation
you're doing
comes
bad
in.
things. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you
and
know,
I would put with discipline, it's like, one of the main things in the Bible that draws you closer to God, which is really interesting, is fasting. So when you give something up, and that, I think discipline is all about that. It's all about giving things up for a higher purpose. And that's totally what, Jesus fasted. That was what he did before he began his ministry. He went out into the desert and he fasted for 40 days. So he gave something up. He sacrificed, eating. And so that, I mean, I think discipline 100%, it's like, you're sacrificing comfort, you're sacrificing
Yes.
pleasure, you're sacrificing all kinds of stuff. And that's really that is fasting. It's the same thing, really.
you're just not fasting food. You're fasting something else. It could be fasting, women, whiskey, cigars, whatever.
Yeah, you can't
It's all spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
you can't unlock your true potential unless you sacrifice certain things, unless you you know banish those temptations. Like that's all part of the game. I feel like the closer you can get everything dialed in meticulously and live that disciplined lifestyle, it's going to bring out the best in you. And that's when that's when you see people really take things to the next level. So um it's almost hard to put all this into words, but I feel like I'm on the same wavelength as both of you. It's like, oh, it's a feeling like everything is just dialed in your life when all these things are in place.
Seeing the divine intervention here is, well, two things. Well, first I want to just say something like, if you guys could quit like flexing your necks on me, that'd be cool. Like, calm it down, guys.
Yeah.
It's like freaking intimidating me a little bit. But other than that, the divine intervention, I'll put it out there. Pete would put it out there. In terms of elite top level power lifters, Pete's bench sucks.
Yes.
And so we want to like I feel like you're the guy. I mean, if there's a guy on planet Earth to give freaking Pete some tips on getting his bench up, he wants to get it to 500 by
What do you got now?
September 4th is the goal.
Well, all right. Well, I'll give a quick synopsis. I won't try to be too long here, but my best bench in a full power meet is 463. I've done 485 in the gym, but obviously after squatting low bar, it takes a little off. That was on Trent. I haven't taken Trent in like 2.5 years. I still cycle. Right now, the other day I did 7 sets of 5 with 325 paused. So I'm not on much right now, but I'm going to be peaking my cycle again as the meet gets closer. And 501 is really just the goal. Knock that out in the meet. So
That's September 4th.
what's that?
That's September 4th.
No, April.
But that's
I'm giving it 40 weeks.
no. We're doing.
Oh, you're talking that? Yeah, I'd like to.
And Julius is gonna go. Julius Maddox is gonna show up. He told me. He's like, I'm gonna come to the gym. And so you said you were gonna go for 500, bro. You got to do it.
You were talking about the meet.
No. He said he'll be at your gym.
Where do you live at now, Pete?
Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So we're right outside of Knoxville, about 15 minutes.
Is that by Pigeon Forge, kind of?
Yeah, right by it. I mean, we're like an hour from there.
Okay.
Do you come up this way?
No, I might actually. I know somebody that just is opening up a place over in a resort over in Pigeon Forge.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know though if I go.
So
Just stop by the gym.
Is my hopes and dreams even possible? Can he hit 500 by September 4th? Or
I might have to up
I
this.
would definitely not take it off the table. I mean, that's a big increase for somebody that's elite level already at this stage in the game. But I would definitely not take it off the table. I mean, it's not like it couldn't be done. It's not like it's impossible. If he said like, hey, dude, like September 4th, I need to hit 700 on the bench. I mean, I'm all about like dreams and hopes and believing in people, but I have to tell you, like, dude, that's probably not going to happen. Like, I'd bet a lot of things are going to happen. This is not that type of thing.
Well, the other thing, I lost pretty much 18 months of bench training because my dogs are freaking out. I lost 18 months of bench training because I had such bad elbow pain. I figured out what was causing that, how to fix it. And so really the last this whole year I've been able to bench consistently.
What was causing it?
Well, it was just tightness, literally. Once I started rolling my triceps and elbows out with a lacrosse ball, all this scar tissue and stuff started breaking up in here, and then I could bench pain-free. It was as simple as that. But the pain would get so bad in the point of my elbow that, like, when I would bring the bar down, it would just be excruciating, and I'd try to wrap it, all these things, nothing would work. Once I literally just started rolling the triceps out and the elbows with the lacrosse ball before training, that literally got rid of my problem.
Wow.
So simple. Just all I needed was some soft tissue work, so things were tight, which is why I'm a much bigger proponent these days of soft tissue work before training, because I believe that can alleviate a lot of tightness and issues that are causing problems. That just changed the whole game. But I lost 18 months from when I hit that 463 up until basically this year, not really training hard on bench or being able to because it was so painful.
Yeah, I mean that you're gonna have to be healthy to do it. So obviously, to hit the 501, you have to be able to do what you have to do. Like that's sort of like, you know, if somebody comes to me and has a goal like that, and they're like, you know, but I can't do this, this, and this, this, and this, you know, it's like, okay, well, you know, to make this hefty increase, you're gonna have to have that stuff taken care of because you can't really train your triceps then.
No, that was it. It was excruciating.
Are you sticking to the 125 milligrams a test, Pete, all the way till your meet, or did Justin talk to you about maybe mixing that up? You know, I'm interested because I think you know September 4th, man. I say go for it then. That's what I want.
I tell you what, I'll be honest. Once I started getting my nutrition in line, because literally in my entire life I've never had my nutrition in line, it definitely added a little more incentive to the idea of increasing the supplementation some more.
Yeah.
Because my nutrition's been garbage. We all know this. So I don't know. It's looking likely that it's going to be more than a cruise dose coming up here, but we'll see. We got big plans coming.
So then on that note, then what do you think, Josh? Like, what do you think? Because I mean, you're the guy, man, with the freaking bench press, and Pete, he's obviously not. You know, just like your deadlift, you weren't built for deadlifting. I remember you saying that's why it meant the most to you. I think for Pete, a 500-pound bench would probably mean the most to him because it'd be the hardest thing for him to achieve, you know?
What weight class are you going to be in, Pete?
Honestly, I mean, we'll see. Right now, I'm 243 right now. That's what I weigh right now as of today. My bench is not great.
Do you care how much you weigh? Is it just get 500 or does it do it a certain weight?
I mean, with the nutrition, like I'm letting Justin handle all that. The nutrition, he's going to take care of that. So I don't foresee us gaining much weight. But
well, just saying that's. I mean, if you want to bench 500, for you, the best way to do it is put on more muscle. I mean, that's gonna. I mean, just because you can't. The advantage you have there is you can't build yourself to deadlift, like unless you can get some surgical procedure that makes longer arms somehow. I mean, it's. You kind of got to run with what you brung, but at least with you can put more muscle. So like if your chest grows 3 inches, you're effectively lifting the bar a less range of motion. So that's the thing is you can it's going to be somewhat of not just like how you train and stuff, but I'll actually trying to add some hypertrophy in the right spots.
I think that's a great answer because that's really interesting. I don't feel like I have. I mean, I'm 243 pounds and that's 6 feet, but I don't feel like I have as much muscle on as I could because I've never eaten properly or gotten like an adequate amount of protein.
You in certain places like traps, neck and stuff. I think if you
arms just
if you put it on your triceps, your chest. I mean, I know you got a jacked upper back already, but you could even a little bit more back there, but mainly like your chest and your triceps. That's gonna. I mean. You got a bigger pad to launch from then, dude. I mean, it's less range of motion too. It's one of those things of like do you do are you doing any kind of chest isolation work right now?
No.
See, that would be helpful. Just like cables and stuff. Like it doesn't need to be heavy, but like the thing is, it's kind of weird because like muscles like hypertrophy is kind of weird or it's kind of practical at least. Like if you, so like somebody that's like a hard gainer in their chest, say, they got to really, make sure their chest is up, everything's in line to feel their chest working with the cable fly, where somebody like, like Ronnie Coleman with a huge chest, he doesn't even have to hardly concentrate. When you have all that muscle mass right there, your body's pretty smart. It's going to let it take over and do the movement, where if you don't, that's why you see like skinny guys that are always, oh, I just feel my shoulders and stuff,
Yeah.
So I think you'd be good off getting some isolation work in there and doing it, like making sure you're feeling it work. So I think one of the ones to make your chest feel it work, if you don't feel it on like isolation movements, is like a cable fly. And then, what else you can do is, before you like target these muscles for your accessories, very easy couple things you can do right here. First, what the obvious one is people don't think about though, is make sure you initiate the isolation movement with the targeted muscle. So if I'm going to cable fly, I need to make sure my chest is initiating that contraction, because you're going to play hell trying to catch up later. That's number one. The second one you can do real easily is isometrically contract that. So if I want to work my chest, I'm going to sit here and flex it as hard as I can for 6 minutes, and then do the exercise. So you can do little things like that and add in some isolation work, and I think you would, just by gaining a little bit of size right there.
Yeah,
And
that makes
if you
a lot
hadn't
of
been
sense.
doing this, you hadn't been eating right, you should be able to do it, easier. If you've been like, no, I've been doing that for the past 5 years and I've been on this perfect diet, it'd be a little more, then I'd say, hey, dude, you got no choice. You got to gain a bunch of weight. But luckily, that's not the case.
Yeah, one other thing, like when I benched the 463 and the 485 in training, I would go pinkies on the rings, and honestly, I widened it out, middle fingers on the rings, and it feels 100 times better. If I try to go more narrow than that now, it feels like a completely different movement. Like I can't get tight; it just feels terrible. And I know a lot of your guys bench close grip, but like the closer grip for me feels like a train wreck,
Well,
whereas wider grip feels great.
you're pushing it the bar real far by your build and your arms, so that makes sense. You just got to be careful with your shoulders there. But I always found with me, the heavier I got, the better I felt wider out. So like it's kind of like, that's why you can, that's for me why I could always get, gain weight. I could bench so much more, is not only am I feeling better wider because I got more protection out here, it's all of a sudden I'm going wider, so I'm not benching the bar as far too. So it's like, I'm kind of like capitalizing on both ends, where when I got lighter, it felt better and closer. So you got a couple things. So you got to really make sure, Pete, that your bar speed off your chest is good. If it's not, you're screwed, because you can't be playing catch up because your arms are so long. So this thing needs to start off right. You got to like really get that initial phase and blast it, and make sure you have that power off your chest, because you can't make mistakes. It's just like somebody with really short arms deadlifting. They can't let the bar, get 6 inches away from them, somehow pull it in and save the lift. They're screwed. You got to do it perfectly. So you have to really make sure that not only in the groove, but you're blasting that weight off your chest. I think for you, the compensatory acceleration type of speed off your chest can be the most important thing, and you could even do things like to warm, when you're warming up for your workout, just do a few sets of like plyometric push-ups or something, just to get that kind of like activated, and see if that helps you.
I think that's a good point too, because I just added in banded pressing, and what I love about it, if you get a lot of band tension on there, it brings the bar down a little quicker.
Yeah.
It really teaches you to activate more muscle and just fire as hard as you can off the chest. So I've been we'll see how that goes. That's
So
good so far.
You got two ways to do that. So you got basically, you can like do more of like a dynamic overcoming a static movement. So for instance, like a dead bench press in the rack, a spoto press where you hold it down there for a really long time. That's kind of like you're static, you're overcoming dynamically. That's like static strength. That's one way. The second way is more what you're talking about, is more like elasticity, elastic strength. That's the other thing. So you have to have both. So you have to have that kind of just bear wrestling dead stop strength. Then you have to have that elasticity of like, okay, the bands are kind of training you like a rubber band, because the reason it's going so well is your muscles are effectively learning to to use that, they're storing that elastic like energy like a rubber band, and at the bottom, just boom, let it go and fire the weight. So people will be like, okay, well, in the powerlifting meet, there's a pause. That's true if but the pause shouldn't be that long, even if it's a second. If it's a second long, which is a long ass pause, 1,001, it's a long pause. You still have about half of that energy stored in those muscles. So if you can get good at storing that energy, that's where the banded stuff, the plyometric stuff, all that stuff is going to be helpful. And that kind of starting strength, then the starting strength built to like the dead benches, those like dead stop static kind of movements. If you can put those together, dude, you're pretty nasty on the chest.
That's one reason, like, people talk about a soft pause on the chest, but I'm like, aren't you losing that elastic strength if you do a soft pause where you're almost hovering and similar to a photo press? I don't.
Yes, that's what you're losing. What you're gaining is theoretically a very quick press call. Because like I used to come down slower, and after I'd hurt I had elbow surgery. After that, I started coming down slower because it felt better. The advantage would be when I came down slower, I come down really slow. I felt like I get super tight, one, and two, I literally felt like when I touched the chest, I got a press call. I never felt like I did a pause bench. It felt like on a video it looked paused, but it felt in my head like a touch and go. However, when I was 100% healthy, I did like more like you're saying, come down a little bit faster and just do it.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of meets where the people who do the slow descent, they make them freaking pause all day. Like, it's unreal. But then the people, if you do a quick pause, if you do bring it down quick and kind of let it sink a little, you get the quick pause. So that's what I've seen in meets lately, which I'm kind of like, well, shoot,
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. If they're calling it like that, then yeah, I mean there would absolutely be no advantage. I guess the safety part, obviously, if you're lowering loads with a lot of weight fast, I can't imagine over time it's as safe as doing it slowly. But I mean, the NFL would be safer in touch, playing flag football than in pads. So that's not really. If you're talking about elite level strength, you're not talking about some circle jerk boot camp or something. So I mean.
Now, go ahead, Pete.
Well, like someone like James Strickland, like he's controlled on the way down, but he fires off his chest extremely quick. And same with Julius. So it's like that's kind of what I feel like. That's how a press should be done. If you're not utilizing that elastic energy, you're not going to be as powerful. And those guys utilize that to a tremendous degree. So
the one that kind of pioneered that was Jeremy Hornstra. If you watch him,
yep.
That dude though, what he's done with that is pretty interesting. Is like he doesn't like. I don't get how he doesn't. Because like a lot of times you come down fast, the issue you're gonna play with if you got a ref that's calling it exactly by the book. Because remember the bar's supposed to be motionless, so even if it's paused, but the plates are moving a little bit. Technically, if it's somebody going by the book, they're not going to call you a press. I get that's not what happens usually, but that's technically the rule, right? Jeremy Hornstra, I've never seen somebody come down so fast but be dead stopped. It's unbelievable. Where like a lot of other people, because he comes down faster than the people you're mentioning. Anybody else I've seen try to come down that fast? Nah, I mean it's bobbling. So you better hope the ref just looks for a pause rather than actually a motionless bar. Difference, motionless bar, it means it's motionless. Pause just means the weight's stopped in your chest, you're not moving it down anymore. But if the plates are shaking, it's
Now, who was your inspiration? I know you were like super inspired by Bill Kazmaier. Like, who are other people that like influence you? I know that you've, I actually want to hear like, because I know like Charles Poliquin mentored you and stuff, and Fred Hatfield. Like, I would love to hear like what you got from those relationships. Ed Cohen, like the craziest people ever. You reached out to them and built relationships, and they mentored you and stuff. And like, who inspired you and who mentored you, and like what?
Those guys, everybody listening to this is going to know. You got Ed Cohen, obviously, Bill Kazmaier. You have obviously Fred Hatfield, Charles Poliquin, the people I mentioned. Obviously, I've already talked about Fred a lot. Ed, got a ton out from him about being very methodical and how to do everything. Also the lifestyle factors, like his life was dialed in. His life wasn't a mess. He wasn't like, you know, like you just don't hear him like, oh, deadlifting was off today because I was hungover. It's just those words aren't gonna ever come out of his mouth when you just learn like the lifestyle part of it. And another thing I liked about Ed was he was always in favor of whatever worked. Like you said, a horror for results. That's what he is. I mean, I know he has his way of doing it, but at the same time, it's like, hey, dude, like I told him something. Just say I said something crazy. Like I said, I quit squatting and just I jog around the neighborhood with a sled behind me for an hour, and he'd be like, he'd probably look at me. But I say my squat went up 200 pounds. Here's a video. He'd be like, yeah, go ahead, keep doing it. He's not dogmatic like that. He just was for whatever worked. Some other people that aren't as well known as a guy started me lifting, named Steve Hall. He's actually from Wisconsin, like Pete, but then I met him in California. He was one of my dad's friends. He died about 10 years ago, and I mean, this guy was crazy. He was like he always talked about wanting. I mean, he was like a former cross country runner. They got up to over 300 pounds, and he literally always talked about wanting to. He benched like 540 raw back in the day, like when nobody was doing that kind of weight. And he also he always wanted to deadlift 700. He never did, and he called me up and said he was gonna go for 700, and he got it, and then he like died like a couple weeks later.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy because that guy was like, dude, that guy was nuts, man. Like he was like, I also 90% what I learned from him was good, but there was a little bit of bad because he he was like so into rituals, it was insane. Like and gaining weight, like he was like it was like he would like talk about whoever could lift the most weight, like that you talk about them like they're God. But if somebody was like, a lightweight, yeah, some lightweight, it was just like, it wasn't even like something worth discussing. And like, you always want to put on more weight no matter what, where I think I could have done, I really wish I wouldn't have gone up in weight so fast. I wouldn't have mind going up there, but instead of just trying to like gain weight to gain weight, I wish I would have done like a more sensible diet and just let it kind of go over time rather than just go crazy. Like you don't have to be a super heavyweight because like, you don't feel as good and stuff. So, and then one time at the gym, talk about crazy Metroflex stories, one for you. Some guy wanted to use his special 25-pound plates. He had them like put in a certain part of the gym for he had like different plates for different lifts. And he had these special 25s for deadlift. And this guy had them loaded up and used them. And he's like, can I please use those 45s or 25s? The guy's like, no. He's like, no, I'll go get you new 25s. Those are just like my lucky ones. The guy's like, said something. I don't know what he said, but he said something Steve didn't like. Steve walked away, picked up a 25-pound plate, ran after this dude, threw at him. Thankfully, didn't hit him or anything. And this dude ran out of the gym. I never saw the guy again. I mean, it was crazy. Like, but like to me, he would have given me the shirt off my back. Like he helped me so much. Like, I mean, it might have been because he didn't have any kids or anything. Like he kind of like, like saw like as his legacy carrying on because, like here we are talking about him right now because he did a lot and he was very, so he was very helpful in like proper lifting technique. I know my bench went up a ton when we started training together because he really beat in the importance of tricep work to me. And he was more of like a power bodybuilder, which was cool too. Like, even though for training, we only went heavy, like we never didn't like, he would call like, a high rep day would be like 4 reps or something, on bench. But like we did a lot of bodybuilding work like after that. So we do like low volume, but then we do all this bodybuilding assistance work. And then, another guy was you guys ever heard of George Brink?
I'm not ringing the bell right now.
He's the first person over 50 to deadlift 800. That's the next person I trained with. And he said, who do you kind of put like So we made an agreement. Like I would train him for bench this was like 19, so I was training him for bench, and he trained me for deadlifts. That was crazy workouts, man. We do like the George Brink training cycle he put me on was you go 7 weeks, 5 sets of 10, stiff-legged deadlifts, no belt, and then a bunch of accessory work. And then you do that for 7 weeks straight, but it's freaking heavy, dude. It's like, I mean, you're going over like, and it's like you go on a 4-inch deficit, you have to touch the ground each rep type of stuff.
Holy
And
crap.
okay, so then we go to 7 weeks of deficit deadlifts. It's 5 sets of 5. And then the same 4-inch deficit, then it's 7 weeks of doubles, triples, and singles, no deloads the whole time.
Huh.
And he was doing this like
Damn.
50 years old, dude.
Well, if he pulled 800 over 850, it obviously worked.
Yeah, no, it did.
Goodness.
And it was I've actually experimented that on a couple people, just seeing if they wanted to try it. And I changed it up a little bit. So I think like we could have made it even better because I think we could have like thrown in, there's all sorts of, ideas of support, like not true overtraining, but overreaching, then kind of backing off. I think we would have thrown some deloads in there and stuff. We could have gotten even more out of it. It definitely helped me because I was in a deadlift rut for a while, and it went up then I trained with after that. Do you know who Gary Frank is?
Yeah. I've heard of that.
He set the world record in the deadlift before Andy Bolton did, and
Okay.
I moved to Louisiana to train with him. Then I trained with helped me out with a lot was Ode Hagen, the
strongman.
the only person I think like 60 or plus to be in professional strongman. He's like 70 now or over 70, but then I don't know. It's just like I mean, I know people I talk to some people, they'll be like, like this is kind of hard. I'm like 31. I'm like, you're 31. I train with people that were in their mid 50s that would like literally scare people off to never come off. Seriously, these are the people I train with, like 55-year-old men that will put 25-year-old men in the ground on not just because they're stronger and like they need 20 minutes to be swayed sets. Like, no, Ode Hagen would do this set of stones, then do something right after. And then we do deadlifts or squats at the end of the workout. So, I mean, these are the people I've trained with. So I'm like, dude, I mean, this may not be for you then because this is what I'm used to,
I've heard a lot of people say Gary Frank is the strongest man they've ever, like a lot of people. You hear a lot of people, they'll go, "Who's the strongest man you've ever seen in the gym?" And a lot of top lifters say Gary Frank is the strongest.
Well, I'd say this: the shame of Gary Frank is he never did strongman, dude. Like I guess since I was like a kid, like 21, moving to Louisiana to train with him, I didn't really feel like it was my place to be like, hey man, I need to talk to you. You need to start doing strong. I kind of like respect people that mentor me. I'm not trying to like, but like now I would have been like, dude, it's quick. He would do because so he had won the NCAA in shot put. So he started doing these drills. Somebody was like, oh yeah, you probably couldn't do that anymore. You're like 400 pounds now. He's like, no, I think I could. And he went outside the weight room, not warmed up or anything, do these like footwork drills. It was like watching a cat.
Wow.
And here he is, almost 40 years old, 400 pounds. And yeah, so if he would have done strongman, that's the biggest strength training tragedy of all time. I would have loved to have seen what he would have done strongman. It would have been scary because he's so athletic. And then I trained with some other guys. It's called the Yorba Linda Barbell Club. It was a guy named Paul Leonard and another guy named Art LeBar were the two main ones. They were Paul was a very smart guy that like kind of like anybody we would bring up on this podcast, he would know who that is and know a lot about him. He just seems to know like everything strength related. Like he's not like a guy that's like, read like the NSCA journals. Like, no, the study says this. It's like, no, you said like, oh yeah, like Grant Pitt's that, huge guy from the 80s. But oh yeah, when he was in the volume phase, he did this, blah, blah, blah. Like he just knows everything. So so one thing I got from him was being, really a student of the game. And then the Art LeBar guy was kind of the opposite. He was just crazy. I mean, the first time I went to work out with him, I was 18 years old, And these guys were great. I mean, I was at a gym where, it was more of a hardcore gym, but nothing like this. It was like, hardcore is like, a 40-year-old lawyer that comes in, deadlifts 515 and like goes play softball on the weekend, like not really hardcore. This was, trying to deal with a midlife crisis or some shit. But this was like real hardcore. Go in there to squat, and we're going to load up 765 for one of his sets. And I look over, the dude's reading Penthouse in between sets.
Man.
And the guy was absolutely fearless. He could be in these high pressure Mountaineer Cup meets for money, and he'd be like eating a French dip sandwich. I heard him ask someone to go to a French dip sandwich. He's between deadlifts, a major deadlift, and he's sitting there eating a French dip sandwich.
That's awesome.
That's weird. That's like
It was such a good group though, because you had Paul, who was like student of the game, so methodical. Then Art, that was just like, he showed up one day, I guess, like he got in an argument with somebody on a construction bid, and like his face was like slashed from some sheet metal or something. And then, like it was just like a good group because it kind of balanced everybody. And then me, I'm just hoping I don't have to talk because I want to sit here and listen to what they're going to talk about because I knew it was going to be hilarious and learn something. So it was good stuff. I mean, that's one thing that was cooler. I think overall powerlifting, I'm not one of those people who says I miss, the old days, so much better, this and that. I do think one thing that was better back then, though, there was more characters in it because it wasn't popular. So you had to be kind of like I'll not say a reject, but you had to be kind of out there to get into the sport because it wasn't like now you can go to a gym and there's like hot girls that know who powerlifters are. Like that didn't happen back then. I mean, there's no way. Like there'd be like, one like girl that wasn't attractive at the gym that was like almost like a dude. Where back then it was like now it's like you could.
Josh, it was like that. It was like that 7 years ago.
Oh, it was worse than that. Like I'm talking like
No,
like,
I know.
There'd be like any single woman that just wanted a powerlifter back then. If they joined a meet, like I mean, I felt bad for them because they would come to meets and like they get like 500 like emails or calls from like people just like, you actually like powerlifting? Because I think guys thought that like, hey, like no, she actually accepts this and like I think it's more like I'll be able to do what I need to do too type of thing. So yeah, it's a different. It wasn't a popular. The whole point being, it was not a popular thing, and I think that's why you had so many like crazy eccentric type of characters, like Arthur Jones and as a powerlifter with that kind of like entertainment value, because normal people that wanted popularity and fame ain't coming to powerlifting back then.
Yeah. The good days, the good old days.
Honestly, I kind of like missed that to an extent. Oh, we froze up. No, like even when I started doing this back in like 2010, 2011, I started getting serious into powerlifting.
Yeah.
There was no Instagram. Like YouTube had literally just started. Nobody freaking knew about anything. Like there was way less competitors, so it was more pure in that sense. And now it's just exploded in the last few years, which is why we're seeing every record gets broken every year. It's crazy.
I think that's the thing. Is like obviously we're making advancements in training, but at the same time, people have to be realistic of why it's happening. If you have 100,000 people doing something, the talent pool's a lot bigger than if it's 7,000.
I think I looked on Open Powerlifting. It was over 200,000 lifters in the database.
So how far back does that go?
Oh man, I want to say like 10 years. I don't know exactly, but I don't even know if it goes back that far. I could try to look, but it's there are about 200,000 lifters in the entire. No, actually, right now it says close to 300,000.
So it's it's so saturated, just the powerlifting community. I was working out at this this guy's gym in his garage. He's a legit dude, but he had like this guy and his girlfriend working out there, and there's this like 120-pound girl, and she's telling me how to bench. She's like, what you need to do, and I'm just like, dude, like you're a 120-pound girl. Like, what the hell is going on these days? Like, what is happening in the world today where a 120-pound girl is like telling, you know, me how to bench press? Like that's just like that.
Was she strong?
She competes, but she could probably bench press like 120 pounds. Like,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like, no, she wasn't strong, but you know what I mean? Like, which is crazy, you know? And I think there's a big, that's a big thing too, is like people thinking they know more than they do. And I really liked that. I heard Dave Tate, this is funny because you guys are on. Dave Tate was saying, if you want to know if an online coach is good, just look at the size of their neck. You know, like that'll tell you, because you ain't gonna have no pencil neck freaking that knows what he's talking about, right? I mean, it's just that if you're a power lifter and if you're supposedly a powerlifting expert and you got a little freaking 16-inch neck, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You don't know anything.
It's
It's a pretty good gauge.
Yeah, I mean, there's not, I definitely try to stay open-minded. Of like sometimes, I do think they're like, I see both sides of that, because there's definitely that people that are like proclaiming themselves to be experts that clearly aren't. I mean, it's just like, it's like, just like, well, for instance, like it was posted one time about the other day on Instagram about sexual transmutation, basically like not ejaculating for a week before meet is what I was getting at. And people are saying, well, that's been disproven. I'm like, dude, first off, they haven't studied elite level strength athletes. And second off, like, I mean, like, just because, you're like, well, I ejaculated 3, times before I did my deadlift max. I'm like, dude, you're doing like 315 though. Then like, it's funny, people are posting under it were like elite level lifters saying like, oh, dude, I get crazy when I do that and really focus. And it's like interesting that people would like that have done nothing would check. There's no way they could do a legit scientific study on this. There's just no way it wouldn't work. But I'm just saying, like, it was amazing, like how many people like think like, well, this is what worked for me. And like, okay. Like,
Yeah. If you did that while on trend, you'd be like a rabid dog.
That's
Straight
the
up. I mean,
expression I
it'd be-
used to the. If you go back and look at that thread, it's the exact. This guy's like, I'd feel like ripping somebody's head off for 3 days. I said, "You're making my point. Thank you, rabid
Yeah.
dog." That's the exact term I used. Is like, there was actually one study on it that did back it. I looked it up. That was like basically after, for some reason, if you ejaculate regularly and you don't you stop on the 7th day, your testosterone levels are 145% of what they were on average. So
It's real.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just focus. It's like focus and aggression. If you're used to getting, draining the main vein and it ain't getting drained, you're going to be an aggressive, rabid dog.
Yeah. You're going to be pissed off.
Yeah. I mean,
well, fighters used to do that, right? That was like a real thing.
it is it works for powerlifting.
And you got to think about it too. It's like taking it to the next level when you introduce androgens into the equation.
Yeah.
It's like taking that effect on a normal person, then let's just like triple it. So it's 100%. I feel like a thing.
You can, yeah. I mean, if you really want to go. I mean, I don't know who all watches this. I don't know how crazy we can talk on this, but
We can talk whatever.
Go crazy.
you can.
We've
you
talked
can
about
do it.
gear plenty of times.
No, not that so much. More than this, you can do it where you make it where you're right before you're about to bust a nut. You stop yourself, and then you just kind of like you feel yourself, and it's like you transfer that energy up your spine.
Yeah.
And I just like, dude, I'm sucking this energy up my spine like a straw with fluid, and I'm taking it to my head, and I'm just there. I'm gonna hold the breath, then let it out about a 5 count, dude. And it's like I'm just freaking rabid, dude. Like it's something most people can't do because it's painful for a little bit, but like
Yeah, doing that, stopping it.
yeah.
That's what Rocky Balboa did, right? I mean that's where I remember first hearing about that. It was because in the Rocky movies,
Mickey,
he was
Women
he said women make weak legs or whatever, and then Rocky would tell Adrian, he's like, no, not before the fight,
He said, I really like this girl. He goes, then let her train you.
Yeah.
Here's the question: Would lifters be stronger in the long run if Instagram wasn't a thing to this day? Or like, is Instagram holding people back, do you think?
Honestly, I'm probably giving you guys the answer you don't want to hear. I don't think so, because the reason a lot of people are getting into lifting is because of Instagram. So if we could get the exact same talent pool with no Instagram, probably, because people are doing more dumb stuff. Where I think like not even to their own fault. Like a lot of people like literally, I don't know if you remember this probably, guys, with like 10 years ago. If you see powerlifting, they'll be, oh, you're gonna go to the Olympics? You're like, what? Like, yeah, if you're powerlifting, like that doesn't happen as much anymore. So there is more awareness. So I think the awareness has brought a larger talent pool, and like
It's popular. Yeah.
I do think the internet and social media, in my opinion, the goods definitely outweigh the bads, but the bads are annoying.
Yeah. That's perfect answer.
Because you think of, yeah, like
Pete's like, I hate it.
well, there's
I'm
people
sick
who see
to
like,
death
oh
of
yeah,
it.
I'm like this, like, there's, you see some people like, oh yeah, like some muscle hypertrophy expert or something, and like, okay. And it's one thing you just present yourself. So I'm like the guy, I'm a scientist that studies this. This is what I do, like I'm not really into doing it myself because I don't really want to eat that way and do all this, but I just know about it. But it'd be like, I'm like a bodybuilder. I was like, well, dude, if this does it just work for everybody but you? I mean, what's the deal? Like it's weird. I've just, like you were saying earlier, I can't imagine like being so unqualified to do something and then, well, you guys will see. You guys have been around for a while now. I always say, go back if you want to go back and see like the whole fitness industry or strength industry, whatever we call it. Look 5 years ago. Look 5 years from now. Look who you see now. You're not going to see the same people in 5 years. The people are in and out, very transient.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's like the turnover rate? Because I've thought of that myself. I'm like, I don't really want to name names, but there's so many lifters who were like the guy, and they're not here at all. And I'm just like, I feel like a freaking old guy.
Like lifters and like, I'm talking more strength coaches. You're talking about lifters that like kind of burn out and they're gone.
Yeah, like that's a thing too, though. Like I feel like an old guy in the sport. Like I've been around forever because I've seen so many guys come and go, and they were like really good. They were way better than me.
I think people a lot of reasons. So I think now, for one, I think people burn out easier because like people that do drugs, they never get off them. So there's that. Then I think you get like they get on them early, so then they're like, okay, like I'm totaling 1,500 now, I'm totaling 1,700 in 12 weeks. Then so in 36 weeks I'm totaling 2,100. Now it's not gonna work like that. And I think there's that. I think a lot of people kind of think there's probably going to be like more notoriety from it. Like, oh, I'm doing this Instagram thing and people like me, 100,000, 300,000 followers. And, I'm just, I'm going to be driving around in Cadillac smoking $50 cigars. And it didn't work like that. It's just that kind of notoriety from strength doesn't guarantee dead presidents in the pocket. You got to do something more. So I think people think it's going to be like their meal ticket to everything, and just, it's not. Like, I think they just think like the world's going to sort of stop when they get popular, and it doesn't. So then it comes down to like, okay, I guess I don't love it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're passionate about it necessarily. It might be fun. It might be fun. Like, I mean, I like to do a lot of things. Like, before we did this, I took my kids fishing. We got a lake right back here about 100 feet away. And that's fun to me, but I'm not passionate about fishing. I mean, it was fun. It was like hanging out with them for an hour. It was fun. But I'm by far not passionate from fishing. If I didn't have any kids, I probably would never fish in just wouldn't have occurred. So I don't know. Like maybe that's what it is.
Is your son's name really Bam Bam?
No, it's Nate.
I was like, that's the coolest name ever. How did you get your wife to name your son Bam Bam? Like,
nah, dude.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that is the best name ever. That's great. It makes sense. No wife is going to let you name your son Bam Bam.
Yeah, no, sir. I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. I would do it if I could, but
it's almost like going back to that though. It's like I used to care so much about views and likes, and like I loved it. I fed off that. And now I'm like, I freaking hate this. Like I literally am like, I don't want to post anything. I just want to surprise everyone and like keep to myself because I love the actual training and I want it to be pure. Like enjoy the training and not feel like compelled to chronicle my progress to the world. I almost want to be like, I just want to go back to the roots, like why I would do this. And that's so I'm almost like rebelling against social media
You know
now. I
what's
have it, but
Yeah, you say that right now, and I honestly, I swear to you, I was thinking about this the other day. If I was competing, how would I do this? I was really thinking about it, and I don't have an answer for you yet because the easiest thing to say is like, social media is for pussies. Like I would just train in my basement and like, show up to meets, kick everybody's ass, and go back to my basement. That's a cool thing to say, but at the same time, if you got to make a living and stuff too, so I don't know what I would do. I know I'm glad. I know I like the element of surprise of like showing up to a meet and not everybody not knowing exactly what's going to happen unless something bizarre happens. I mean, nowadays people can't even control themselves. There's like no element of surprise unless there's not. I mean, like when's the last time like, oh, so and so just deadlifted 900 pounds and I thought he'd only be at 820 by now. It doesn't happen. It's just because
yeah.
everybody's supposed to everything, and I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, I get that like the flip side is though, like, somebody like Julius can actually make a living doing this. So I mean, like if the sacrifice he has to make is like, if he, roasts peanuts and wants them for a snack, he has to like show everybody, hey, here are my peanuts. It's probably worth it.
Yeah, and I get that. I lived that for a while, like when I was with Animal and stuff, and like I got so by the end of it, I was with them for about 5 years, and that contract ran out right before this year. I was so freaking burned out at the end. I'm like, I don't want to post all this shit. Like, I'm sick of freaking documenting every little stupid thing. I'm like, I don't want to feel like, because there's times when I'm on a cruise dose, and there's times when I'm on a full cycle. It's like, am I gonna have to stay on a full cycle all year to like post impressive lifts? Like, what happens when I'm doing, like a lot smaller percentage of the weight for reps and no one cares? It's like, I just hated that idea. Like, I wanted to do what I wanted to do
That's
with
why
my
people are
life.
burning out. You just said that why people are burning out. That's part of it, right? Besides the passion thing of like, you just can't be at that level all the time.
Absolutely not. It wears on you mentally. And then when you feel like you always have to post content to keep people excited and like keep yourself relevant, I feel like that's a very dangerous line to be treading because that's when things start going away. And that's when you lose the passion, which is almost like sort of what happened to me. And then, my best total was 2 years ago, whatever. It's not that long. But like, I went through all these thoughts. I'm like, I want that passion back. I want to enjoy this. I don't really care anymore about being famous. Like, from a business perspective, that's one thing. And like, we have a gym and everything, and I got to keep some of this stuff going. But it's like there's a balance. I don't want to be. I don't feel like I have to post all the time anymore, and it's kind of nice.
That is nice. I think you do the legwork already too, which is good. So yeah, I mean it is nice not to have to do that all the time because like yeah, I mean I don't understand people that are that obsessed with it that aren't running business too. Like, oh yeah, just like it's like yeah, I mean there's a lot of people that also not the next step is people that are doing it that don't have that many followers. Like, oh I got like 51 followers and I have to like interrupt this meal and stand over here to get a picture of the steak. It's like, okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know, dude. It's if it's not like for business reasons, I think it's also when you're an athlete, there's probably more because I like the other part I like about it is a lot of people do follow it. So if you're able to like help people out, that's nice. But I think a lot of times when you're just an athlete and you're having to post content to keep them like entertained, you're not really helping people out as much as just kind of that. Like, it's not like you're, hey, here's this post I did on like how to improve gratitude, your mindset or whatever. It's more just like, yeah, like if, I do this, I got 100,000 followers, but if all of a sudden I decided, I gotta like, get a step out of a powerlifting and all of a sudden that's cut in half the next day. It's like, I mean, that wouldn't be good, like, I don't think you'd feel good having like you're saying, have to always entertain people, always.
Dude, I literally when I lose Instagram followers now because all I post anymore is literally like, oh, these are the supplements I like, and I'm being serious. Like I take supplements for blood work, and that's it. And like when I lose followers, I'm like, I literally am telling myself, I'm like, freaking good, man. I'm happy about this. Like, and I genuinely, I'm literally like, I'm not even joking. I'm not just saying good. I'm literally like, good. Like, I don't give a crap about this. I want that element of surprise. I want to stay underground with things more, and I just want to enjoy life. I don't want to feel like a slave to. But the only time it makes sense is, like you said, business wise. I get that, business wise, 100%. But to feel like we always have to put lifts up every day and show every training session, that just gets ridiculous after a while. And I think a lot of it is age.
One thing,
Like,
you know, I'm not training me when I'm doing stuff. I'll just go like, if I did hill sprints today, my friend that went with me, like, hey, we're like got one that was 20 yards, one was 40 yards. I said, like, with the last 20-yard get this one, the last 40-yard one. So it literally didn't take any time. It took him handing my phone, which was over, you know, a little bit of his way with music on, and he just did it real quick. So it's not like, but for like actually you guys are doing, we're filming entire training sessions. The only way to do that, if you have to do that crap, is like really purely for business, would be to have a professional filmer. You'd have to like find, you know, seriously, because like when I've done stuff for like Gasp on the hill sprints and stuff, you do nothing. You just show up and do what you do, and they film it and they piece it together. That's nice. But like people that are sitting there editing that and doing it themselves, and like, I mean, they're worried about like which camera angle is going to look better. I'm like, okay, like that's where you're talking about getting that. That's the problem of not being in the zone at that point, because the zone by definition is like a single-minded focus on the task at hand. And if you're worried about these camera angles, how can you be immersed fully in the present moment? You can't.
and to be quite frank, like you when you end up doing stupid shit in your training, like you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're like, all right, well, this is going to be better. People are going to like this more. You know, maybe I can do that. And you start doing all this with no plan. So not everybody does that, but that's a possibility.
I think it's sort of like it's like just how you know, it's a temptation. It's gonna be more of a temptation if you're having to do that. Just how, like, you know, not everybody that, you know, drinks alcohol is gonna get drunk, but if you have like a nice liquor cabinet with top shelf stuff right in front of you and full access, is just more likely than if it's not in your house. It's, you know, it's just, that's what it is. It's tempting, you know, like to show off. You're gonna have a lot of people when you show off on social media. If a lot of people like it.
Good and bad with all things. Sometimes I wish it was like I was born in the 1960s, Andy Griffith style, and just lived like that. But I'm like, that's how I want things to be.
What type of gym do you have now?
So we literally opened a gym at the start of the year, 2,600 square feet, not real big, but we have like combo racks. We got all the powerlifting equipment, calibrated plates, and it's literally just like powerlifting on this side. And then on the other side, my fiance runs group classes for women. So it's like, it's a real small gym, but I can do all the main lifts there and I get it all done. We've got dumbbells and everything. And it's just so nice because it's like, it's everything I need without all the frills. And I don't have people standing around bothering me in like a commercial gym. And it's not really hardcore, but I almost like that. Like I can just put my earbuds in and I get in that zone now. And I couldn't access that for a while. Like I just completely lost it where I couldn't get in that zone at all. And I would try everything. And like now that I'm just in this environment where it's like usually just me lifting at the time and I can put my earbuds in, put my music on and focus, things are going great again and I love it. So it's a big contrast. It's almost like the basement days where I was by myself and I could just, that was it. I've loved that so much more.
You were angry though, right? Like you were more angry, you're saying, right?
I was angry, and I think a lot of that ties into what we talked about. Like, I wasn't popular. I wasn't getting laid. I was like, you know, I wasn't cool. And I was like, almost this mentality of like, fuck you guys. I'm going to show you all that I'm going to be something. And that pumped me up, and I enjoyed the lifting, the challenge. Whereas now it's like, life is good. Like, I really can't complain. Everything's stable. Everything's great.
What you're doing now is sustainable. That's not sustainable. Like,
exactly.
That's going to work for 6 months, and then, you know, not. This is sustainable for as long as you want it to be.
Because I enjoy it. It's what you guys talked about earlier. Like, I go into the session and I'm a pumped. I'm like, this is a challenge. I'm super excited to train. It's not a dark place mentality. It's more like
Sure.
I'm stepping up to the challenge and I'm excited about it, you know?
I think that's another important thing with training, especially is making sure you enjoy it. Like not just training for the sake of entertainment, but like actually enjoying it. Like if we can get the exact same training effect out of one way you love and one way you hate, we need to pick the one you love. I mean, with elite athletes, you might have to tell them like, hey, look, there's really I know you hate to train your triceps, but you want to bench a lot. There's kind of not really a way around this, but if for like bodybuilding, if like, like Pete loves, say, safety squats and I love front squats and we're getting the same training effect on the quads for the most part, I should let him do safety squats if we're kind of accomplishing the same thing and he loves one and hates the other. I think people don't look at that. So that's why I was asking you some questions, Scotty. I think that's important stuff to know what clicks with people of like assuming it's productive. Like now if it's just general fitness, then you can go take that even further of like, okay, you need to, if it's general fitness, you definitely need to be training the way you like because it's sustainable. Because obviously the number one factor into getting results is adherence to your program, to a program. Even adherence to a mediocre program is a lot better. I mean, I've seen some people that I've worked with before, and I didn't really know that much about them from a social media standpoint. I've seen them like, okay, they'll have like all these degrees and this and that, and it's like, dude, you can't even complete a week's workouts in a week's time. It's it's 17 days, then 8 days, and I got to get on to them. Like, how do you not know this? Like, you're talking about like markers of central nervous system overtraining, and you can't even follow a fucking program. Like, you got it all backwards. Like, just like some guy randomly like following something basic like 5-3-1 with just a squat rack in his garage is going to get better results just because he's actually adhering to the program.
And that makes the best clients. Like you would take a client who adheres to the program and just does what you put down any day over like a higher end who just does whatever. And that's the truth. Like you can tell right away who's gonna be decent, people follow through, people who just go with the flow. Like they're like, all right, I trust you, I'm gonna do what you say. Like I don't care how long the plan is. If you outline a plan that's half a year, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be disciplined enough to stick with it. Those are the guys who make the results.
They do. And one thing I found though is interesting about this topic is a lot of times people don't do well that come in like crazy gung ho because we're talking about adherence to the program. So like, oh, dude, like, where are you at in Dallas? I'm gonna be at your doorstep, like the next day, and like to train. I'm like, whoa, like, let's, this and that. I'm like, no, let's like. Then it's like,
let me get a garage workout with you, bro.
yeah. Then it's like, okay. Then like, hey, dude, I haven't heard from. Oh yeah, I've been busy. I'm like, what? Like, you about to move in? You said. Where people that are like, that's not most people. I like enthusiasm. I'm saying when people like over the top enthusiastic. It's nothing against them personally. It's just that can't be sustained. You can't like be that gung ho all the time. There's just no way.
That's 100% it. You have to look at like what's sustainable. Too high of emotions, too low of emotions. Neither one is sustainable. There has to be more. And this is what you learn. I compared to when I was like 22, even 20 when I was working with you. I was an.
How old are you now?
I'm going to be 29 in August, and it's just like. It's a whole different level of maturity and like knowledge. So like if I worked with you now or whatever, the results we get would be far better than 20 years old. Because 20 years old, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm all over the place in my head. I want to max out. So it's just one of those things. It comes down to discipline. Again, like we talked about, it's so huge. You have to be willing to just chop away one day at a time.
Like the two bulls on the top of the mountain. You know that story?
Yeah. Tell them. I know that one.
There's a young bull and an old bull on top of a mountain. The young bull, and there's a bunch of cows at the bottom. The young bull looks at the old bull and he goes, well, I'm gonna run down that hill and screw one of those cows. And the old bull says to the young one, how about we walk down and screw them all? Hey, I mean, it's from that movie. You guys should watch that. Have you guys ever seen the movie Colors?
No.
Oh, dude, that's like epic Boys in the Hood good. It's probably like 3 or 4 years before Boy in the Hood is. It's a police movie. Like it's really good. It's called Colors. And there's this one cop that's like totally gung ho and like not a good cop because he's so aggressive and doesn't deal with people properly. And this older guy, old school, like tells him that.
I'm gonna watch that, man. When did you like how long were you at Metroflex, and when did you switch to Destination Dallas, which sounds like a porno movie?
No, dude, I didn't switch. I go to both. Just the content that we do is at Destination Dallas, so they're based out of there. So that's the home gym.
Oh,
So it's not. I've gone to both, so it wasn't like leaving Metroflex. It's just if I'm going to professional content post, it's going to be at Destination Dallas.
Oh, okay.
That's because of logistics.
Is that where Big J is always working out at?
That's where Steve Johnson's at.
The what now?
Johnson, yeah. Big J.
You know Big J?
Well, I follow him. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but he was saying like to contact his manager or something like that. And I was like,
you want me to? Yeah, dude. I bet you I can talk to him.
Yeah, man. We got Brian Dobson coming on next week, and I'm gonna start that podcast by asking him about that story where Branch Warren said, "Do you know Mark? Do you know Mark?" He said, I heard a story where Branch said Mark was there at the gym with like a stripper, and her ex-boyfriend was there, and Mark just beat the shit out of this guy in the gym and freaking scalped the dude.
Yeah,
like,
and the guy he pulled down by his ponytail with 315 on his back.
Dude, that's freaking.
I didn't know this was like a public story, but yeah, dude, ask him about Mark. Mark, I'll let them tell the Marks. I don't know Mark. I regret that I didn't meet him because he died in 2007.
Oh.
And I knew somebody that knew him well because he'd already left Metroflex. He's out. This is where I live, out in South Lake, and I guess he lived in. I guess he had a gym in South Lake, but I didn't live in South Lake at that time, and they were saying that I told this girl that competed at the gym in figure that I wanted to meet Mark. She knew Mark, and I guess he trained her or something. And he's like, yeah, I told him to stop by, and I really wish I would have stopped by because I'd heard all these stories and I wanted to like just hear these firsthand from the dude. But yeah, you ask him about Mark, dude.
Yeah, I heard that story, and I mean, I think we've done a lot of these podcasts with West Side guys, but I think Metroflex sounds even wilder, man. I think it's a crazier gym than West Side, but people don't realize that.
Probably because you have more cross section, West Side's beach powerlifting. This is like bodybuilding and everything else. Like it's there's like this guy in there. Apparently, so yeah, I should have mentioned Brian Dobson earlier too. The bodybuilding, I trained with Brian for a year. That's definitely the person I learned the most from there, for sure. And yeah, I didn't know we were going that direction with bodybuilding. But yeah, Brian would be really good to have on. Brian's hilarious and tells good stories. And there was a guy there. There's a guy at the gym named Rich the Terminator Heron, and I guess him and Mark like hated each other. And apparently, like Mark was like the badass of the area, this and that, but Rich is like psycho, and I guess Rich was like wouldn't take a shit. Like Rich is like, and so I guess one day where he drives semi trucks, okay, I just put context with Rich. The first time I ever saw Rich, I walk into the gym, he's kicking the squat rack with his shin for like Muay Thai kicks and like so that's the first time I ever saw this guy. And this guy, but he looked like this like nice guy. He looked like, I mean, it was weird. Like he was like the first time I met him, like he come over and bowed to me. I'm like, dude, like I should be bowing to you. You're the one kicking the squat. So I guess Mark pulled up, I guess Rich pulled up a semi truck, and he set off the alarm in Mark's Corvette. Because I guess the semi truck made it somehow like I don't know how it works, but made the Corvette alarm go off. And he come out, who the fuck set that off? And Rich is like, it was me. And I guess, I don't know how it didn't go down that day, but Mark was used to people backing out. So apparently they're having like a body weight for overhead press reps contest at Metroflex. And Rich was a referee, and Mark complained about something with the contest and yelled at Rich. So I guess Rich picked up the barbell and like chased after Mark and tried to huck it at him. Because I was like, yeah, I heard Mark back down, and I told it to Branch. Branch's like, no, he wouldn't. I said, from Rich. He's like, I don't know about that, but okay. He like looked at me. He's like maybe, it wasn't like anybody else. I said, he was like, yeah, no way. And then yeah, with Mark, he was like, oh, maybe, Rich. So ask him about Rich the Terminator Heron.
For sure. I'm sure that Bryant's going to have some great stories, man.
Ask him about a guy named Ray Woody. Apparently, he's dead too now. Apparently, he's the reason they outlawed like dwarf tossing here. Because he went to, they had a dwarf tossing contest at some cowboy bar, and all the TCU football players were doing it. And Ray Woody, surprisingly, was like a millionaire. I don't know how he made all his money, but he did. And like the last person to expect to be that loaded. And he's like, probably 6'3", like 390 pounds. And I guess he just was he's drinking some whiskey, and like he took like a $20 bill and like threw it to the guy in the front and like cut it in line. And the midget was like, oh, kind of like egging him on, like making fun of him and like challenging him. I guess Ray threw the dwarf so far over the pad that he missed the pad, dude, and got hurt. I mean, it wasn't like dead or anything, but like, I mean, it was bad. And apparently that's the reason that they outlawed the dwarf tossing in this area, is because Ray Woody from Metroflex. And another time, I think Brian had to restrain him with a gun. Like he had to somehow got on top of him when like he wasn't looking, took him down, and had like a gun to his head or something. I mean, there's a lot of good Metroflex stories.
Holy kid.
I got a great midget story. There was like this group of like 50 midgets. So they got like 50 midgets together, and these midgets would like flip over like cars and like buses and shit. Cause you get 50 midgets freaking, working on a bus, and they could flip that thing over. So they would go around and do these shows, and they were like, we could do anything and we could beat anything, and they had a lot of pride because you got a group of 50 of them, we could take Pete Rubish on, and so these 50 midgets are like doing these acts, and they did like a show in Cambodia where there's like no laws, there's no rules. That's where George Lehman lives, by the way, in Cambodia. And so
where is Cambodia? That's by China, sort of, yeah?
Yeah, it's like an Asian.
No, it's Asian. I'm just not, because I've been to China and Japan both, but I've not heard Cambodia in years. That's why I've since like Vietnam stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Vietnam or Laotia or whatever. Like
Laos, yeah.
Laos. Yeah. And so somebody in the crowd goes, "You couldn't even take one African lion," to these midgets, right? And so they got offended. They're like, "Yeah, we can," because that's their thing. Like, we could take on anything. And in Cambodia, they don't give a damn. They don't care that there's no laws or anything, or like you treating humans good. So they put on this event where they had 50 midgets fight an African lion.
What happened?
48 of them got mauled to death before they finally stopped it. This lion just like,
this is real?
Yeah.
Is there any like record on the internet, or do you just hear this like?
I just heard it. My friend told me that I shared the story just because Pete, the thought of it is so funny. It's just unimaginable, like because they thought they could take it on, and in Cambodia, they don't care, man. They're like, all right, you want to have a go at an African lion? Let's set this thing up. And,
how did the other two survive is the better question.
I think they just stopped it by then, and probably the lion was just sitting there eating some midgets, I can't imagine being the second wave of midgets to attack the lion, after you watch that first wave just get freaking ripped apart. Like, how are you going to go? You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to freaking go after this thing on, the second wave of attack? I'd be like, Man, I don't know, man. Those first guys got their heads ripped off by this thing. I think I'm gonna freaking let's tap out, but their pride was so much that they 48 of them got mauled to death.
Wow. I don't even know how to respond to that story.
It's like, all right.
That's where George Lehman lives now. George Lehman is in Cambodia living it up, man. He said it's like, he I don't know, he I think his dad passed away and he inherited some money and invested in real estate and stuff. And he said like he was able to he's crazy. I mean, he's like all about that whole like just living it up stuff, but it's interesting too because I share the gospel with George. I'm like, hey man, King Solomon, he did the same thing, and it was all emptiness to him. And George said that. He's like, that's true. Like it's not satisfying. You never get satisfied. And then you realize like the good things in life are not just pleasuring yourself to no end.
Well, that's interesting you brought that up. You sort of like that's sort of what Pete was saying, though, in a not so hedonistic, but like that's actually a book called by Herman Hesse called Siddhartha, and it's about I guess it's based on a fictional Buddha. I don't think it's supposed to be like a real life account, like how like the New Testament would be like Jesus's actual account. But basically, that's what he does: is he goes and like indulges in like endless women, endless food, endless this and that. Money, and basically the guy finally finds like inner peace at the end when he goes back down to his original kind of job where he had a rowboat and he would just row people across the river, and that was like where he found like sort of like Pete's saying of like this social media, this that, and then it's like kind of back to the basics of training by myself with no one watching kind of made me feel better.
Wow, that's cool, man.
I feel like you're happier in the long run when you are abstaining from things and when you're disciplined, whereas like pleasure gives you that short-term pleasure, but it doesn't lead to happiness. Pleasure does not lead to happiness. I 100% believe that. Pleasure leads to big problems is what I feel like. That's truthfully how I feel like. If you're seeking pleasure, your life will be very empty, whereas if you're staying disciplined and striving for things like that's what makes you happy. Like if I wasn't even this dieting thing, like it sucks, but I'm almost happier because I'm doing something difficult and I'm getting stronger mentally from that and physically. It's I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I don't know. Yeah, I think like like Fred used to talk about that a lot. He'd call it carnal. Like it's a carnal lifestyle,
Yeah.
and that was sort of what that. And I think that's a lot of people try to say that it's bad or good, and it's probably good. It's probably okay to an extent. It's not necessarily wrong if it's the right context. It's just like if that's all you seek, you will definitely not be happy. It's like with anything like that, people just keep seeking pleasure. They definitely don't seem like they're happy after a while. It's just like there's no end, there's no win.
Yeah,
there's no solution. That's why you see like all these weirdo like people like famous people and stuff do like that are real famous, like movie stars, do these bizarre things. It's because they're never there's no sort of like any sort of spirituality or anything like even a greater good. Like even if like it doesn't matter even what your religion would be, if it's just like helping other people, or at some point just all about yourself seeking pleasure is gonna be very, very, very empty. I mean,
Do you guys know about David Goggins?
Yeah, I like
Yeah, his whole thing is like suffering is what the basis of life is. Like that's the basis of meaning, putting yourself through suffering in like difficult situations. And I mean, from what I've experienced in life, I feel like that's true. When things are easy or you're coasting, it's just not. It's empty. It's nothing there. So it's not meaningful. Along the same lines.
I'll agree to an extent. I mean, I'm purposely seeking suffering, but I think like if you purposely avoid any kind of suffering, you're gonna have problems. That's for sure.
Have you guys read Ecclesiastes before?
Yeah.
dabbled in it.
That's my favorite book in the Bible. And so what makes it really interesting and really great is just the context. When you understand the context that Ecclesiastes was written by King David, the guy that killed Goliath. So King David's son was Solomon, and God said to Solomon, he said, I'll give you anything that you desire, anything you want, like a genie. God was like, I'll give you anything you want. And so King Solomon asked God for wisdom to rule his people well. That's what he wanted. He said, I'm going to be the king, and so I want you to give me wisdom to rule the people well. And because God was so pleased with what he asked for, he also gave him all the wealth and all the riches and all the blessings anybody could ever ask for, what a normal person would ask for. And so when Solomon, according to the Bible, he lived the most blessed life of anybody in history. And he was also the wisest man to ever live. Like, God blessed him with wisdom beyond any man other than Jesus. And so it's just very interesting to read what he wrote, based on knowing that this guy is the guy who was richer than any man who ever lived. He had like 10,000 wives. He had 10,000 concubines. He had all the land. I mean, this is the guy who had anything. He had a chef to cook him every single meal. Like, whatever you want, it's right at your fingertips. And he was completely tortured by the fact that he knew this was like fleeting. He was like, life is like, the grass grows and the grass dies. And that's what life is. He's like, life is just, it's just a blink of an eye, and all these things that he enjoyed, they tortured him because he knew he was going to lose them all. And it actually tormented him. He was like a tortured soul because of that. And for me, it's like the greatest perspective ever is to read that book, and just realize, like, oh man, like all these things that people desire so much, if you get them, like you're talking about those like famous people, those are the people that get them, and they're the most miserable people, 100%, the most not content, miserable people. And it doesn't, worldly possessions and all that stuff doesn't bring any kind of peace to you, at all, and I don't, like you're saying, maybe rowing does, or training, or, for me, it's always been my relationship with God, and then for me, that has connected me to, I've been able to make that a part of my, I almost look at it like a ministry, being involved in powerlifting and stuff like that. Like, I look at it more as like, this is like, I'm passionate about it, but it also gives me connections with people like you guys who I can share my faith with and stuff like that, and like Julius. I mean, Julius is like all about God, and I've gotten to talk to him about it. And that's what it is for him. For him, he's like, this is just a platform for me to share the gospel with people. And I'm like, dang, bro, that's crazy, being that you're the strongest person, like, by far ever in history. And how do you feel about that? How are you feeling about that 800-pound bench press?
Confident.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's
basically, he did basically 91% for 2 reps, not psyched up, So I think he'll be there that day.
I do too. And and he was talking to us, me and Pete. We did our first podcast was with him, and he said, it was just amazing for him to talk about how, like, he had low testosterone and he freaking benched 705 with low test. And then he said he went on testosterone replacement therapy. And he was telling me, he's like, I don't want to abuse what God's given me. And he's not trying to, he's like, I'm not trying to do all these drugs so I could freaking bench 900 pounds. And I was like, damn, that's crazy, man. Like, you're by far the strongest person ever, but you're really reserved in that sense.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a good dude. There's no way around it. I just don't think anybody have anything bad to say about him.
Yeah, no, he's the reason this podcast exists. Honestly.
Was he having fun on there? Was he being serious or joking around with you guys? Or
dude, he got real serious. Like, he started preaching the gospel, and he started like prophesying into Pete's life and stuff, and it was like really powerful. Like,
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
whoa, dude.
Yeah, no, he's a good dude.
Yeah,
It was crazy stuff.
he has a captivating kind of presence because he's such a big guy too. It kind of makes you like really listen to him. His words,
Absolutely.
whoa. Yeah, it was great, man.
Cool.
So,
Well, should we wrap it up, or
Let's wrap it up. I was supposed to get off here at 8, and I'm past that. So,
oh, sorry, man. What's your favorite verse? Just to wrap it up, I just would like to know.
that's a tough. I don't know. I can tell you my favorite 2 books.
What are your favorite 2 books, bro?
Psalms and Proverbs.
Awesome. I love it, dude. Psalms
I
and
think Proverbs even could be like, you could give it to an atheist and take out the references to God, and they couldn't argue it. I mean, it wouldn't matter. It's just like, I mean, of just ways to live. If you took the God references out, they would, and you didn't tell them what it was from or anything. Oh yeah, this is really good stuff. You know,
Yeah.
It's just,
I think a lot of people who are atheists use those terms, from Proverbs, or they'll say those things, They'll be like, "Oh, you got to do this," and it's like, "Do you realize that's from the Bible?" They don't. They have no clue.
no, they don't. Yeah, no, totally. I agree with that.
All right, man. Well, freaking thanks for your time, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it was
it.
fun, guys. Thank you for having me on.
That was
Thank you,
awesome.
Let me know when it comes out.
Yep, I'll send it to you. All right,
Okay.
guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Oh, hey, Dan Bell here. As many of you guys know, I'm a world's strongest powerlifter. I actually just finished up reading this book from Scott Davenport's Mixed Martial Arts. I love how he gets in the mindset grit required to become successful. Scott tells a story of how it was installed in him in his early years. He then takes you through his rise through fighting, the camps, the coaches, his influences, and his opponents. He also dives into the hardships, the challenges, and injuries, everything that he needed to overcome. Scott's virtues and faith carried him through these hardships and challenges to find your own. That mindset and that lessons that Scott learned and expressed in this book can be transferred to almost any endeavor. If you're interested in this story and how hard work, perseverance, faith can carry a person to their goals, this book is definitely for you. Oh, hey, Dan Bell here. As many of you guys know, I'm a world's strongest powerlifter. I actually just finished up reading this book from Scott Davenport's Mixed Martial Arts. I love how he gets in the mindset grit required to become successful. Scott tells a story of how it was installed in him in his early years. He then takes you through his rise through fighting, the camps, the coaches, his influences, and his opponents. He also dives into the hardships, the challenges, and injuries, everything that he needed to overcome. Scott's virtues and faith carried him through these hardships and challenges to find your own. That mindset and that lessons that Scott learned and expressed in this book can be transferred to almost any endeavor. If you're interested in this story and how hard work, perseverance, faith can carry a person to their goals, this book is definitely for you.